You're listening to The Moose and the Loose, your 10 minutes action-packed financial podcast with your host, Mike Yahoo. Hey, what's up, Market Moose? Mike from The Moose on the Loose. I hope you're doing well on this Monday. Let's start the week with a very interesting topic. Let's talk about National Bank. But first, last week, all banks reported their earnings. Well, TD did it like on I think Thursday or Friday the other week. But anyways, all the numbers were in. It was a roller coaster of emotion where TD and BMO did not do well. CIBC and Scotiabank did better than expected. And then, of course, National Bank was one of the strongest quarter among the big six. Earnings per share up 24%, revenue up 20%, and PCLs, provision for credit losses, like well in line with expectation. My goal here is not to go inside this quarter, but rather explain you why in the world National Bank keeps on reporting such strong quarters. Like, what makes it different for this one as opposed to the other banks? On earnings day, the stock price skyrocketed slightly above $125. It has cooled off a little bit more on Thursday and Friday, but yet just good news around National Bank. So what's the magic here? Like, why is it happening over and over again? A lot of investors are making the mistakes thinking that all banks are the same thing. They all have been around for like 100 years and they're paying dividend and it's all good and you should have all of them in your portfolio. Well, I respectfully disagree on that statement. They're not the same anymore. They have been quite different, actually. They selected different growth vectors with some success, some failures. And actually, I did a full review of each bank's business model on YouTube 2 weeks ago. So just go on YouTube, look for the dividend guy. You're going to find it up. And then last week, I did the full quarterly earnings for the big six. So if you want to have a good grasp of what's happening, just go on YouTube, search for the dividend guy, and you'll find two amazing videos explaining you everything that you need to know. So now let's go on for the deep dive for National Bank. So I'm using 2023 numbers. So for the full year, because I wanted to talk about different business segment, not the recent quarters, and it's not going to change much for 24. And of course, it's going to have we're going to have the full number only in 3 months from now, as their year is not ended yet. All right, so the last year it reported almost 3.7 billion in net income, and 36% of that was came from personal and commercial banking. So personal and commercial banking, so you can understand, it's really all activities being done at the branch. So we're talking mostly about deposits, loans, commercial loans, and mortgages. The revenue last year was for 4.5 billion. 2.5 were coming from personal, and the other 2 billion was coming from commercial. So you can see that it's pretty much like half and half almost in most of those activities. Like about 50% of it, a little bit more than 50, is coming from Quebec. So that's the first thing that is different for National Bank. They are a leader in a niche market. So instead of being a big guy in Canada, they are a big guy in Quebec. So I believe that being a leader in a market is really, really important because you get to decide a little bit more, dictate a little bit more how it's going. And this is pretty much what's happening with National Bank in the Belle Province. The second largest business segment was financial markets. And you've been hearing me talking about financial markets for a while. BMO is known to create those big swings, either big jumps or big drops from financial markets, because it includes a lot of different things, such as doing IPOs, underwriting, selling research, and making liquidity available on the stock market. So making sure that ETFs and stocks are being traded all the time. So that's another service that banks can do because they have a lot of volume, they have a lot of capital. So they are a very good place to be. They're really well positioned to do that. This business segment has been a huge growth vectors for National Bank. We're talking about now 29% of its business in 2023. I'm pretty sure it's going to be like around 30% again in 24. Of course, we can always see a drop here, but so far, National Bank has been able to report constant and growing net income from that part, which is really, really amazing. It's that stability of revenue as opposed to other banks in like for the same business segment. Now, moving on to the third segment is wealth management. So wealth management last year was 20% of the business. So 36 for personal and commercial banking, so the classic business model, 29% from financial markets, which is a little bit more volatile, and then 20% from wealth management that is incredibly sticky. Why? Because most of that revenue is fee-based. So they charge a fee on assets under management, and then boom, they rack up this quarter after quarter. So last year they reported revenue of 2.5 billion, and out of that 2.5, 1.4 was fee-based revenue. So 778 million from net interest income, and then 311 from transaction and others. But the bulk of the revenue comes from a very stable and recurring cash flow from the fee-based business model. So at 20% of its net income, the wealth management team is doing an amazing job at growing and providing some stability as well. I used to work in that department, in that big segment under private banking 1859. And again, as I told you, with the future acquisition of Canadian Western Bank, one thing that they did incredibly well was to develop that strong brand for private banking and combine their commercial segment with their wealth management segment already. So while most business owners do not have millions of dollars in their bank accounts, so they fly under the radar, whenever they sell their business, they do have those millions of dollars, and then all banks are going after those guys. But the difference is National Bank is already providing them with amazing service while they are there, so they don't have to get like millions of dollars invested in National Bank to get the same level of service. And I think it's a key component. While I was working there, it's been a while though, Private Banking 1859 was top 4 of assets under management for private banking firms in Canada. So top 4, pretty solid, because now you have to include like private firms, banks, life insurance companies, and so on. So a lot of competitions there, and they were one of the biggest player. Not too bad for a small province, from a small province-based bank, right? So the last, but certainly not the least, because I was quite surprised to see how big it went over the past few years, U.S. and international segment. So this one is now 15% of net income for National Bank. And it's really like two acquisition they made. So the first one, ABA Bank. ABA Bank is a super regional bank in Cambodia, a leader in the market over there. So I kind of like and don't like this acquisition, in a sense where I like it, where National Bank used its playbook to become a strong leader in a small market such as Quebec. They did that with Cambodia through ABA Bank, so that's perfect. The thing I don't like is, I don't know, I'm thinking one day they're gonna have like huge provision for credit losses and it's going to hurt big time. But so far so good, so I cannot complain. But I kind of would be tempted to sell Ababank at one point and just cash in on that big gain. The last one is Credigy. It's a specialty credit agency in the US. This one is also doing very well. So net income from Ababank in 2023 was 343 million and Credigy was 207. So probably like 65% from Ababank, 40% from Credigy for that segment. So the key points for National Bank, the first one, small P&C segment and overall, because it's only 36% of their business, heavily focused on dominating a market. Financial markets providing a lot of stability as opposed to other banks. Wealth management in a top position, generating recurring revenue. And then US and internationals exposure with very niche and specialty credit. Kind of very interesting to develop with like highly targeted movement. Again, now they're going to go after Canadian Western Bank, and I think it's going to be an amazing acquisition. So I hope that I've helped you understand a little bit more what's the difference with National Bank compared to the others. If you have enjoyed this podcast, let me know on YouTube. We can now comment on that, so it's going to be great. And if not, do not forget to give me a 5-star rating if you enjoy the show on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. This is the only way I can get found on those platforms. So I thank you so much, Moose, and we're going to talk again tomorrow. And until then, don't forget to stay invested.
Hey, welcome to the disclaimer. If you're listening to the Moose and the Loose, you cannot really expect me to give you buy or sell recommendation or financial advice, right? You're here for fun, you're here for information and some entertainment. But I am not your financial advisor, I am not your broker, so therefore I'm not liable if you're losing money after listening to the podcast. If you're looking for some advice, go see a professional. If not, you can enjoy this show and do your due diligence after it.